it's New Year's, so this is the kind of what's on everybody's mind. What do I want to achieve in 2024, and how do I go about it? And what are our goals and things I got to get better at and all that. They always say you build the better habits by starting day one with something low bar, right? You just do this thing one time, and tomorrow it becomes two times, the next day becomes three times. At some point it becomes who you are and what you are, right? You At some point you reach the stage where you've done it every day for 3 months. Well, Mike has lived it, has preached this way of working, right? It's about the work. He wears the shirt that says work, right? He talks about several key things that he believes in: service, believes in work, right? So I've watched that very carefully because that's a level of discipline that if you're going to preach that, you have to be that, right? And that's hard. That's really hard. Mike has to be there at 4 a.m. working out before the team gets in. He has to be the one that stays the latest. He has to be the one that is always repeating the mantra about the work. It's about us. It's all these things, right? Because if you stray from that for 1 second, you're a phony and nobody buys it.
Mhm.
And so, how many years now? I mean, he did this. I said this on the pregame show. He did this right after the Jacksonville State game. He didn't waver. He continued down this path because he believed it was what was right. I think that will carry him. I think that this tough time, and there may be more tough times in the coming days, if we learn about some transfer portal kids and some things that don't go your way. But I think he's built this on the right. It's a bedrock of sound principles. I think that's accurate. I think that they'll overcome this because Mike has been consistent.
I agree. I think this shook him more than Jacksonville State by a mile, this
Yeah.
particular thing. And you can see it. Like even some of the photos from the visits and there was a photo that a fan took with him at a restaurant this week in Miami. I'm like, good Lord. Mike is already in very good shape, but he's lost a lot of weight. Like you could just see that he looks, it's not gone. It's not quite
Right.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can tell that he's been through hell this month. I mean, he's wearing it. And the problem is, here's the reality. I agree with you. I think he's going to come out on the other side of it. But it's going to get worse still entering 2024 for the first week or two before it starts to get better. Because while personally, I watched that game knowing what's happening before it does, especially as we're
Yeah, but a
doing
lot of people didn't. Yeah.
the most impossible pregame show ever, where you learn that Braden and Farmer and Bethune aren't even playing. Those.
I'm going to go back and watch our pregame show because the look on my face when that popped up is the look, I'm sure, is the look of a person who recognizes this could end 63-3.
Right, right. Like we thought it could, it possibly might, and but now it's going to. That's where it leads during
Yeah.
that 1 hour pregame show. And no matter what happened, I wasn't going to be moved. There was going to be an apathetic nature to watching that game. That sucks. I mean, that sucks. But that's not the case for the locker room. That's not the case for that sideline yesterday. I shudder to think what that situation was like. It's those kids are
Agreed. And Tom and recruits and transfer portal kids. He's got a lot to overcome now. The perception, and it's an unfair perception, but that doesn't matter. We know about perception being reality. The problem he has is that there's some kid who was watching that game yesterday who's trying to decide between Florida State and three other schools. And it's not something that you can just wish away. You can say all the things.
Mhm.
You can point to these different high points of success over the last 2 years in the face of adversity. You could point to the consistency and say, no, if you think we have a culture problem, how the hell do you think we went 23-3 over the last 2 years? How do you think that we won 19 straight games? How do you can't have culture problems and succeed in that manner? I promise you, you can't. So this is not really an indicator whatsoever. But as you correctly point out, it takes one kid to be, it takes any of these kids to go, well, I guess, buddy, but I watched 63-3, so I always have to repeat myself because people will take a snippet of this and misrepresent what I mean. Florida State would not have gotten beat 63-3 if they'd had their players. Florida State could have won the national championship had they had their players. I still think that's true. I agree with you. I probably would not have picked them to do so, but I thought they belonged. They had a roster of 22 players that could have easily competed at the highest level and been in those games and maybe won them. What I think is that's all they had. They don't have 32 players. They don't have 40 players that can do that. They have about 22 to 25. That's what they have, and maybe 26. So There's a lot of hard work to be done to get to that place. I happen to also believe that Mike is the kind of determined, and now this will piss him off. I mean, I hope this is what this does. I hope we get an angry, vengeful, petty Mike Norvell from this point forward. I hope it is a all of you eternally, Mike Norvell, meaning to the committee, to the people outside of this program, to the people that were laughing yesterday as they watched this thing take place. I hope that's Mike's. He's already built it the right way. He's already doing the things day to day to get to that place. But now you can't tell me you wouldn't have a chip on your shoulder to exact revenge for this bullshit that just took place. Oh my God. This might make me a tyrant at some point because I hate losing just like he hates losing, just like anybody who competes hates losing. And I would have it in my head. I'm sure some of it would be imagined that there were people all around the country who thought this was funny. I would be doing the kind of press conferences 4 years from now after we beat somebody 87-3 and I go for it on 4th and 1 from their 10 with 2 minutes to play would be fun to have.
Yeah, I agree. I hope he has that energy, like the energy of a tyrant, if you can just take away the inherent evil that comes with the word.
Yes. I don't want him to become Jimbo and be bipolar and all that stuff.
I find him to be such a refreshing coaching personality in an era where everybody wants to close things off, that he's open. I fear that this might close some things off for Mike. How could it not? But I hope it doesn't change his personality, because his personality is what differentiates him from the competition. And it's what has gotten a lot of kids to say yes to him, even though they didn't have a lot to go on relative to some of the other places we're competing with. So I hope it brings that energy, and I hope it also brings, when it comes to personnel decisions, that level of cutthroat. But I hope he stays the same guy, because that guy is a lot of fun to root for. He really is.
Well, we agree on that. I don't think it'll change his personality. I just think the level of ruthlessness, and if you think about it, I mean, that's what the best of the best are. There is a level that you have to get to, and it has to be that kind of, it's about the business. I mean, Nick Saban is not in his feelings.
Oh, and he is behind the scenes. Don't get me wrong. Like, there's a middle ground, Mike, that's the best. I think press conference Mike is boring. I think coaching offices Mike is ruthless. Like he already was before this all happened. But then there's this middle ground guy who could have a conversation with you, and he's attached to the earth, unlike some of these dudes who don't, they're not attached to reality, and I hope he stays there.
Mike would be a fun guy to sit and have a beer with by the pool, and if he had nothing to worry about and there was no responsibility the next day, and he didn't think you were gonna take what he said and run with it to the press, or Mike just could have a conversation with you about the nature of the game, his philosophy on the game, in recruiting, the things he's learned, the mistakes he's made, the successes he's had, and what he's drawing from all of that. It would be a lot of fun to have that conversation if you could get him to do that. But there's a sense of unfinished business now that we didn't think would be in place after a 13-0 season.